It's working. It's like rewarding because it was an hour of like going back and forth with Zoom.
Yeah.
Still, I'll tell you when we're live. It's still loading.
Okay. Hopefully it's freezing up a little tiny bit,
Yeah.
but not too bad. Okay.
Yeah, probably because my husband's downstairs teaching, but she wasn't supposed to be here today. Okay. I'm going to close out of the vault, my website, this thing. That might open up some space. Hey, angels of technology. Oh, we look so good in this picture. Okay. Oh, it's live. It's just us hanging out that we look good. Okay. Hi.
Hi.
I think we're lagging a little bit, aren't we? Are we lagging from your end?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, good enough. We're lagging a little bit on my end, but as long as it's clear from your side, I'm happy with that. So welcome everyone. We managed to figure out live access to the New Earth Mama Leaders Facebook group, which I'm thrilled about. And the technology feels like it is cooperating. So this week I am here with Patricia Wald-Hopkins, and I'm just going to read just a bit of her bio so that you can learn more about who she is, of course. And then we're going to deepen into some conversation around the journey of walking our sacred path as moms, as creators, as pioneers of the new paradigm, and what it really takes to bring forward our sacred work in the world. So Patricia Wald-Hopkins is a modern mystic, infinite self-catalyst, and soul liberation guide for those who are ready to break free from old paradigm limitations and awaken their infinite self and lead the life they are divinely designed to. I love that. She's an Akashic Records wisdom mentor and creator of the butterfly healing method that supports her clients to embody their infinite self. She is a Gene Keys ambassador. I have learned so much about my Gene Keys and Gene Keys in general from her, and guide, and a co-founder of the School of Light Collective. She's an author in several best-selling collaborative books, including the chapter on butterfly medicine healing, and in the book Energy Healing and Soul Medicine. I think I'm getting this right. She's got a chapter called Stardust Blood. Oh, that sounds so yummy. Codes for Harmony on Earth. And another chapter in the Awakening Starseeds book, Dreaming into the Future. And also, I have to say, she has created a really beautiful oracle card deck called the Infinite Self, talking about, birthing our sacred work and to conscious creation, especially for women, is very much this process of working through the birth, bringing something from the intangible into tangible form. And Patricia's most definitely a master at this. And I am so honored that I've been fortunate enough to journey with her. She's one of the very first graduates actually from the Akashic Women's Guide certification program in 2021, I believe. And she's moved through some of my private initiations and transformations. But before that, Patricia was out in the world creating and weaving beautiful strands of her sacred work in the world. So welcome, Patricia. We had connected a little bit before we jumped on, and I feel like a really beautiful place to land is to just start to share a little bit about where you feel like your sacred path opened.
Thank you for that introduction, and so glad to be here with you. Where did my sacred path open? It was kind of a jolt, I'll have to say. There were probably two initiations. One happened in my mid-30s. So I'm in my early 50s now, but in my mid-30s, and I had my first marriage end.
Mm.
And that was a huge initiation because I had just gone, the traditional route of college, getting married, and really hadn't explored who I was as a woman, was
Mm.
kind of still operating kind of from that, I don't know, teenage 20-year-old brain.
Mhm.
And so when that ended, I had to really sit and who am I? And I took time off from work and I went to the most magical, well, I thought it was the most magical school for healing arts in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I studied to become
Oh,
a massage therapist and was initiated into a whole different world, coming from a science background. There was science in the healing modalities, but it was just there's so much more magic and intuition and just my world expanded. So that put me on the sacred path of healing work, I would say. Or
mhm.
and then the second initiation came as a mother when I had my
Totally.
first child. It was actually surprisingly a couple, well, let's see, 35. I had my first child when I was 37. So it was only a couple of years afterwards I met the man that I wanted to have a family with. And so then that just changed my whole world again. Because I had a little window of just me, and then it went to me with children, and it opened up a whole other like understanding of myself, right? My body, what I was capable of creating, and so I guess that's where it started, was with those two initiations. And as my children kept me occupied, and I wasn't out doing a lot of stuff out in the world, I started to really dive deeper into my spirituality, because that's what anchored me into staying in balance with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I love how you describe the initiations. Yeah. Oh, it's this leg. Sorry, it's distracting. I think you're done speaking, but I'm seeing your mouth move. Anyways, it totally makes sense in terms of initiations, and I find that that's like it's been very common through the scope of my work, working with the Akashic records, and then supporting people to women to step onto their sacred path, is that we often, we're on this like trajectory that we were supposed to be on, that society kind of, told us that, was right and that we should walk. And it's always interesting to see where the initiations pop up that kind of like, blow life open in order for us to really dive deeper into the truth of who we are. And then it creates realignment to more of our authentic path or our sacred path. And yet at the same time, when we can look back, even myself, when I look back like into my 20s, I can see where I was redirected, but and then also like why I chose to do what I chose to do. So I know for you it's like environmental sciences, and that connection, right? To like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like who you are as a woman has grown so much, and that connection to the earth has deepened. And
Mm-hmm.
while, yeah, it's like not like fully environmental scientists sciences in terms of the scope of who you are and your mission and your purpose, we can see where you drew threads from it. But yeah, I agree with the initiation piece, and even motherhood. I really truly feel like that's that another kind of like portal or doorway that kind of like blows our life kind of wide open. And if we harness the power of what's available there, we can use it in deep inquiry to understand ourselves more deeply. And you did
Yeah.
that. So that's so cool. That's beautiful. And then, so I'm kind of thinking even to, because I had kind of seen you, I think like around maybe in the online space. So I knew you, and then you had shown up in my world. And where do you feel like, just to kind of track the timeline and really look at like, some of the creations that you've brought through and the magic that's unfolded, who were you when we kind of like met up? What was going on with you? And yeah, we can just drop in there. Because I feel like that's oftentimes women will find me at that place too when they're at the next leg of like an initiation.
Mm. Yeah. So, wow. That was like, was that right when COVID started? I believe it was like 2020, I think, right? Or something. Or was it around? I can't remember
Yeah,
when it
something
was.
like that. Yeah.
I was, yeah,
Yeah.
I know that I was at, or maybe it was right before. I don't know. I can't remember now, but
Well, I
it
can
was,
remember. Yeah, whatever you're remembering is fine. And I think just remember you were really you had already created a lot. Like you were
yeah,
really, deep into your sacred work. And yet it was feeling small. Like you just knew there was some bigger version of yourself that was ready to
yeah,
come out. Yeah.
yeah,
And there was just, you knew there was some like old energetic stuff that, you were kind of needing to clear out, like that place, and I think, and it was,
yeah, that's
yeah,
true. Hmm.
I know
You know
it's
what
like
it
weird to go back.
was? It was, so I had like all these pieces, right? I'd been doing all these different things, but I had never weaved it all together. And
Mm-hmm.
um and never given myself permission to kind of
Mm-hmm.
rebirth again. Like I felt
Mm-hmm.
stuck, like I was going to be stuck having this certain way of sharing my work with the world. And so when I saw
Totally.
your
That's what it
program,
was.
yeah, it was
Yes.
the feminine phoenix rising, that
Mm-hmm.
that really called to me. And the phoenix, I'm really connected to the
Right.
phoenix. And so
Yes.
yeah, that's where I was like ready to be reborn into a more expanded version of myself, or a more full version,
Yeah,
authentic version.
expanded full. I think that makes sense. I mean, you had already, had your own business for quite a while. Yeah. I mean, it's just been really fascinating to watch too, just like the birth of like more creations, even though you had already created so much for yourself, and how you really started to bring that forward, like into like a bigger kind of platform way, even just through like the new website that you brought forward and how you started to connect some of like all of it. Like I'm thinking even of like your smaller kind of like creations, but through the scope of like bigger transformational journeys, and how you
Mhm.
really grew in space holding like that. Yeah. Does that resonate? I don't want to
Definitely.
put words into your mouth, but
No,
yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I really felt from working with you was bringing the feminine, the divine feminine, into my creative process. Before I think it was there, but it wasn't the softness and like the fullness of the feminine, like that was missing. Like I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know how to I didn't know how to create the contain, like a feminine container
Container.
to hold
Yeah,
my creations. So it was like learning how to be a mama of my creations. Like you taught me how
totally.
to do that, as well as circle work. I really wanted to do more circle work,
Mhm.
and the Akashic records
Mhm.
certification really supported that piece for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're someone who has studied multiple um, pathways or approaches to working with the Akashic records, which I
Hmm.
love. Would you be, and I know they all have, their beauty and their unique approaches, but would you be willing to share just a little bit about the Flower of Life Akashic healing method? And I don't know, just where you feel like that landed for you in terms of the work.
Yeah, it really it became very embodied. I mean, if I had to put it anyway like that, I could feel it more when I worked with the Akashic records. I could feel it more in my body, whereas the other one I was more out there and kind of disconnected from the body. And so that was one of the things that I liked about it. There was also the piece around creating that sacred container again. I mean, I really, that's what you really are showing me, how to create a feminine container, a nurturing, nourishing container to do that deep kind of soul work. Like really, because I didn't have, I could do the work, and it was very, it had a very, strong process to it, but this one is like, just, it feels so good. And so it feels like a really safe space to do that deep
I love
excavation.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, these are things that I sometimes don't think about, and yet that was like a really important piece for me to weave into the process. So I love that, like that grounded for you, and that you caught that part, and that it was a gift in terms of your Akashic record work. That's so beautiful. I'm like trying to think of like where to move the conversation to next and what question I want to ask you. But let's see. So, over the course of like the year, I've really seen you build out the next level of like your business foundation through your different programs and offers. And I've seen you step out with more of your visibility and your leadership. But would you be able to just share a little bit on like, I don't know, maybe that process, or some of the awesome aspects or the beautiful aspects of it, but also where some of the challenges maybe lied in it, if you can recall?
In the stepping out more, was that the
In the
question?
stepping out more. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the simplified question. Yeah.
Yeah. The challenge is, well, visibility for me. I think we were talking about this a little bit before. I'm primarily, astrologically a Cancerian, but I have a little bit of Leo. So it takes a bit of work. But once you get my Leo out there, she's she's happy. But you have to really make that Cancer feel safe.
Safe. Yeah.
So visibility,
Totally.
visibility has been a big was a big challenge for me. And then the other part of visibility is like how to structure it, or not needing structure to be visible, so again, it's that feminine flow, like just show up and be natural. So I had to kind of learn to allow myself to be, not to worry about always having everything perfect. Like it doesn't, I put it quote unquote perfect, right? Because it is perfect. It's perfect when you can just show up and be natural.
Yes.
So permission to
I've
be
seen
natural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've seen you really do that. It's one of my favorite pieces to hold space for sure, when working with women, is, stepping into their authentic leadership, the visibility piece for sure. And I just remember, and I know in my own journey too, doing my first podcasts and doing my first like live radio show and like doing all the firsts. There's an edge to it. Like there's an edge to it, but I've really seen you go from some of those like first steps to now having your own podcast and really finding some ease in terms of like how you show up and share your wisdom and share your voice. Really, quite beautiful to watch.
Thank you.
And I think, another facet is, how you've really allowed yourself to take up more space,
Yeah, take up more space. That was definitely a challenge as well for me. It's like, it's okay to be like let yourself spread out. I think being the youngest of 4 children, I kind of learned to, stay out of the bigger kids' way. But yeah, I've
Totally.
since
Yeah.
allowed myself to grow up a little bit and take up a little more
Mhm.
space.
Oh
But
yeah, big time. Yeah.
I don't
And
know
I
if there are any other challenges. I'm sure
Well, I
there are
think that
lots,
you've
but
spoke to, yeah, like the micro layers for sure as we
mhm,
like untangle and take those steps. Absolutely. I think just something maybe like worth sharing is that you are someone who, you've worked on behalf of the divine feminine for quite a while and studied the sacred feminine. And yet you're coming from a little bit of like a corporate background. So it
mhm.
really was like finding that like that flow with a different kind of permission in the scope of your business and your leadership. Yeah. I don't know if there's
Yeah.
anything you can add into
Well, there
that other than
is.
Mhm,
Yeah. Well, so another aspect, yeah, I have my own, business, sacred feminine business, if you want to call it that. But I
mhm,
also, I still I still work in the corporate, and doing the work with you has really allowed me to be more authentic and take up more space and use my voice more in those kinds of settings, in the corporate settings, in a way that I probably would
mm,
not have done, you know, like
yeah.
it gave me the courage, and because I believed in that I, was worthy of taking up space, which was not always the case for me.
Yeah,
And
that's so
yeah.
beautiful. And thank you for sharing that because it was definitely a core part of my journey. And it's something that I often will support women through, regardless of where they're coming from, like whether they maybe are only in corporate or maybe they have like their own team and their own business, like in an actual 3D business or online, or it's a mom like who's
Hmm.
actually just like finding her voice on behalf of her children or finding her voice through the school system or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's a really valid point in terms of like our authentic like feminine leadership. And
Hmm.
oftentimes for whatever reason, because of whatever collective or personal layers of trauma that we may have, or just where things are kind of tangled up within, it can be really hard. So I think it's beautiful that that opened up for you. And I know from my own journey that that was a really pivotal experience. And I think that's how we really start to powerfully create space for the
Hmm.
feminine to lead. So yeah, thank
Hmm.
you. Well, I feel like that's quite beautiful, like where we're landing with everything. But also, do you want to just take a moment and maybe share just about any of your sacred work that feels relevant at this time? Whether it's like a program that you want to share or your podcast, your website. I'm going to leave your details below regardless. But yeah.
Well, I will just share a little bit about my most recent body of work that I've, been birthing over. Well, it's been a while, but it's starting to
Yeah.
actually come out. It's called Voices of Gaia, and it's kind of weaves in, as you were saying, my background in environmental health with, all the divine feminine wisdom, and just as you do connect, much to Gaia, to Mother Earth. It's similar to that, but it has a little bit different, like the flavor of it is weaving in my environmental health as well into that, um, and
Under Gene
also
Keys.
in the gene keys, and helping women find their voices from
Mm,
that perspective of environmental health. So it's all coming together, and
beautiful.
yeah, I'm really, and I have some perfumes coming out that go with that too. So
Yes, yes, absolutely. We'll make sure we'll put your personal profile or maybe your business profile because I've seen you posting about the new perfumes
mhm.
and about the new Voices of Gaia offers, which look incredible and so potent. So we'll make sure and do that, and the link to your podcast as well, in case anyone wants to explore
Yeah.
your voice and the voices of those you've been interviewing.
Mhm.
Otherwise, if there's any kind of just last personal shares or just like nuggets of wisdom that might be on your heart, you can share. And if you feel complete, that's fine too. But I just want to touch in one last time.
Let's see. I think what I know what I'm feeling that, and the word just came, is that no matter what your ancestral lineage is, or the challenges that they've had, you know, you can take that medicine and bring it forward as wisdom, like the challenges and how you can show up in your authentic voice now, regardless of what happened to your lineage in the past. And that way, going forward, your children have more freedom. So.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I kind of cut you off at the very end, but there's so much layered wisdom in what you just shared. So I'm going to leave it at that, because if you really let that sink in, yeah, there's a lot of beauty there. So thank you so much for that. And thanks for joining me live. And thanks for everyone who catches the replay. Sending you all so much love, and we shall see you again next week and talk to you very soon. Now I have to figure out how to shut this off. Okay, I have no idea. I wonder, okay, let me go to Zoom. I think this is it. Got it, and leave meeting. This meeting is being live streamed. Okay, I'll just end it because it still says that it's being live streamed.